Okay, so we're going live in 5, 4, 3,
Yeah, we're already live. So the
2,
reason I was late to record tonight was because I was playing the Lake Bed Temple in The
1.
Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess,
And we're
which
live.
is the water temple, or I guess that's the Twilight Princess version of the water temple, and it's super fun. But one of the worst things you can do in a Zelda game is quit mid-dungeon and then pick up the game later. It's like nearly impossible. It doesn't matter how well you know the dungeon. It doesn't matter how many times you've played it. If you are in the middle of all the puzzle, because there's a flow, there's a very distinct flow that Nintendo designs very, very well to move you through the dungeon. And if you get halfway through that flow and then just quit, it is chaos.
Yeah, and not it's chaos because even if you go back and try to retrace your steps to like you don't necessarily sometimes remember what exit opened up. Like if a room has 4 exits, you don't remember what exit opened up in what order to like retrace your steps in the exact path you went.
Exactly. And you end up retracing a lot of the dungeons. So sometimes you end up essentially replaying the dungeon.
Yes.
And then even then you still are lost. So anyway, that's why I'm a couple minutes late. I swear I was looking at my phone constantly and did not see that you were online. But here we are on this episode of Game Life Balance US. I made it. I'm Cody Goff, and this is Jonathan Maran. It's Maran, right?
That's the Irish pronunciation of my name.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be Moirin?
It's Dublish, from Dublin.
Moirin.
Oh, Moirin.
All right. Yes. How could I have been so whatever?
We started talking about video games like right away today. That's pretty unusual, isn't it?
No, that's just my intro. I mean, you're going to talk about video. This is going to be a very balanced podcast, I think, actually.
I think so.
Because I'm going to talk life and you're going to talk games.
Like you're going to like do the bad stuff up front and then it's like waiting for the good stuff at the end.
I see what you did there. Did you fill out a March Madness bracket, by the way? Not that we're going to talk about that.
I have like 4 different groups of people that want me to participate in a March Madness bracket. Like, what is going on with this? Is this like...
I actually don't want you to. I want you specifically not to.
Are you afraid of my skills?
I don't care.
My incredible bracket making skills that I have?
I
make phenomenal brackets. Everybody's told me that. Everybody has told me. No, everybody tells me that.
I don't care about March.
I make wonderful brackets.
This is the problem. I don't care about March Madness, and I don't want you to care about it and then do well in something that I don't care about.
I'm going to make a bracket. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be a great bracket.
Are you going to make it 5 feet taller every time?
Every time you bring up how bad my bracket is, the bracket just got 5 feet taller.
Wow. That is a bracket.
It doesn't actually make your bracket better, though, when your bracket is bigger. So it's actually kind of not helpful at all to my bracket.
Well, that's cool. Well, I know that we don't have all night tonight because I have a meeting after we record. I have a meeting with members of the Gonna Geek Network because I'm on a panel this Friday at the Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo. Comics?
The Chicago Comic Sans. It's a font?
Yes, I'm at the Font Expo, C2E2 in Chi-Town, which we'll talk about later, but I've got to get to that meeting. So before you dive into this video game that you're completely obsessed with and want to marry, do you want to marry it? Do you want to marry The Witness?
It's over, and now I am sad.
The game? Wait, I thought, aren't there 600 quests or something, and you could play it for hundreds of hours?
I think there's like 648 puzzles.
Did you do all of them?
No.
Okay, I was finna say, so you can go back and replay the rest of them, right?
The optional puzzles at the end are not something I can explain when we start talking about the game.
Okay, well, before you talk about The Witness, I want to talk about The Dentist.
I've never heard of that game.
I know, in life stuff. When's the last time you went to the dentist?
I kind of don't want to admit how long it's been since it's been a very long time. It's been a very long time since I've been to the dentist.
Okay, that is exactly what my situation was before.
Maybe like 3-4 years, something like that. It's been a very long time.
It's been way longer than that for me. Well, it had been way longer than that for me. which is awful to admit, but here we are. And because I wanted to bring this up as kind of a public service announcement to listeners, oral hygiene is extremely important, all right? Because plaque and tartar are things. I'm not going to get into details, but last week I decided I haven't been in the dentist in forever. I should probably go and make sure I'm healthy. And I went, and he started to clean my teeth. And I say started because he said, I'm not going to be able to finish cleaning your teeth in one session, because I learned a lot from my new dentist about oral hygiene. And when you have a lot of plaque, it solidifies and turns into tartar. I'm sure you know this. And then tartar has to be scraped off with little metal.
You have to like crack. They almost have to like crack it, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Break it apart to get it off of your.
So the dentist literally took a chainsaw and chainsawed tartar off of my teeth. And he said before that's just what happened. It was a chainsaw, an industrial strength chainsaw meant to cut down oak trees.
No, I really don't believe you.
I didn't even know they made chainsaws that big, and yet here we are. So he took an oak tree chainsaw to my mouth, and he said, I can do about half of it now, and you'll have to come in a second time for me to finish cleaning your teeth. And he said, if it's too uncomfortable, you can come back and we'll give you Novocaine, and I can finish cleaning your teeth. I probably should have opted for the Novocaine.
That's pretty pathetic that you would need a painkiller to get your teeth cleaned.
No, it's not. When he finished, he said, I literally cannot believe you were able to sit through that entire thing. He said, you should be extremely proud of yourself. Like 4 times.
Because your mouth is disgusting. It is one of the grossest things I've ever seen.
That is not accurate.
Be proud of yourself and ashamed of yourself.
I went through this painful ordeal for 2 reasons. One, because I didn't feel like making 3 appointments to get my teeth cleaned. I just wanted it over while I was there. And 2, to remind myself not to go several years without going to the dentist ever again. So public service.
Are you a flosser? Like, are you like a floss everyday type guy?
I'm not, because I have a permanent bottom retainer and it's really annoying to floss around.
So I've got one of those too, and I have to use those floss sticks. So I use the sticks every day, and they work out pretty well, actually.
Yeah, well, I've got the threader now, so I'm so glad we're talking about
the threader sucks.
What's wrong with the threader?
Don't use the threader. It takes a long time. It's hard. It's difficult. It's difficult to get under there. Don't use the threader. It's dumb. Just get the sticks.
Use a stick?
Get the floss sticks. Yes. Take his chainsaw. Go chainsaw off an oak branch. That is what the chainsaw was meant to chainsaw. Chainsaw off an oak branch. Use that to pick your teeth.
You use a literal stick to pick your teeth?
I do.
To floss. Is it a walking stick?
It is, in fact, a floss stick.
Can you walk with it?
If you were very small.
Are you very small?
My bracket is huge.
Is it? Well, anyway.
I guess what I'm trying to say is there's no problems in that department.
Are there not? Whoa. Hello, too much information. Ladies, John is taken. Sorry to say. No, but seriously, I know it's hard for adults to do, and I know many adults who put off going to the dentist because you think, but infections, bad things can happen. He was very scientific. He was a great doctor. He reminded me of Dr. Jacoby from Twin Peaks. No, I'm serious. He was wearing a Hawaiian shirt. He had crazy hair, and he was hilarious. It was amazing.
I feel like Dr. Jacoby didn't actually know anything, which is what made Dr. Jacoby a good character.
No, Dr. Jacoby fixed Ben Horn after he thought that he was fighting the Civil War.
Yeah. Okay. That was a very good show. It was a very, very good show.
It was a very good show. So, no, legitimate PSA, go to the dentist. It's a really good thing. I think you probably have coverage if you're in America because Obamacare. But if you're listening and you're in Canada, you're probably in luck because I think everything is free there except beer, which somebody told me that if communist Bernie Sanders takes over the country, beer will cost $45 for a 12-pack. I just read that in a comment.
It's the only thing that costs more. So everything else is free just because their beer is more expensive. It's really weird. It subsidizes everything.
Well, we are an alcohol economy, so it makes sense.
Right.
So anyway, well, go to the dentist, John. You will thank me later.
I will. I promise. I probably won't. I will. I'll try to.
It's one of those things.
It's
I'm
a
on a
thing.
mission to get people to prioritize.
It's a thing. I know.
This is like back when I went to the emergency room in my early 20s one time, and the bill would have been over $10,000, but I happened to
But
have
you
a short
cried like a little girl, and they said, "It's okay, little girl. We will make the bill smaller." And they did.
I did think it was weird that they said it's okay, little girl, when I'm a tall man.
I I don't know. I don't know what you tried to convince them of.
But anyway, and I happened to have health insurance at the time, and I knew a bunch of improvisers and people working in the service industry who didn't have full-time jobs with health insurance, and none of them had health insurance. I told them all, look, I know you're healthy. I know this is good and nothing probably will happen to you, but if something does happen to you, you will go completely bankrupt and have no money. And then Obamacare came around, so I didn't have to push that as much, but now my new crusade is get people to go to the dentist.
What an advocate of responsible adulting you are. Have you gone to any high school parties this past weekend?
No, I have very little influence on very few people, but I choose to use that influence generally when not trying to get them to drink Four Loko or do shots of Malort with me. I try to use my powers for good, John.
Malort sounds like something you would say when you were vomiting.
You'll be drinking a bottle of Malort with me when I come to MartinCon in May, so get ready for that.
I'm ready. Sounds good.
Is your body ready?
Probably not. Probably not.
Oh,
probably very little chance. There's probably very little
and
chance.
every time you complain about it, the bottle of Malort is going to get 5 feet taller.
Okay, I can handle that.
So
well, we should also get like a 10-pack of Mickey's while we're at it and just take that down as well. Because that's, let me tell you, that's a great malt liquor.
Mickey Rourke or Mickey Rooney? Because Mickey Rourke's, I heard, can be a little not so smooth on the way down. You know what I mean?
What the hell did you do this weekend?
What?
What did you do this weekend? Who are you? Who are you?
Central Life stuffing. Also, I went to so St. Patrick's Day in Chicago is total amateur hour. Everyone is trashed by 10 a.m. There is vomit everywhere.
2 days then. That's Thursday, right?
No, but the weekend before St. Patrick's Day.
So it's like not a place you want to be.
It's not a place. I mean, I don't know. Some people think it's fun. It can be fun if you decide to go out and get trashed. But our friend Blake is a total hipster and hates crowds and things that are popular. So he decided we should go to Madison. We went to Madison.
Because Madison's totally unpopular.
Dude, Madison, we were like right on UW-Madison's campus and nobody was partying. It was strange.
Madison rocks. Madison's a good place.
Well, yeah, but people party there. College kids party, but apparently St. Patrick's Day is just not a big thing up there. I don't know. But we went and visited a couple friends that we've mentioned many times on the podcast. I played a board game with them. Mm-hmm. And then our friend came back from the bathroom while we were playing Belfort, which is a 5-player board game I enjoy thoroughly, which I won, by the way.
Okay. It's
like the only board game I can win against.
That's insanity. That's the second game of Belfort that you've won.
No, I know. Games. The first time I played Belfort ever, I won. It's my game, apparently. And
some games are like that.
I don't usually win board games against you guys, and you know this. I didn't win a single game at MartinCon last year.
Some board games are like that. I'm on the record that Belfort is my favorite game that I'm awful at. Like it just is. It is. I love it to death. I've won it like a single time.
Well, it's a fun game. So then our friend came back from the restroom. In this one game took us 4 hours to play or something.
It's a long game.
It can be a couple hour game, but it was Blake's first time. So our friend comes back from the restroom and goes, yeah, so I just vomited for the 4th time. I don't know what's wrong with me, but probably can't hang out after this game. So we should finish.
Nice.
So that was sad and sucked because we would have loved to hang out with him more, but we hung out with our other friend and we went to a comedy show and it was great and things were good.
Were you just up there for that one night?
Yeah, just the one night, just a quick.
It's so close. I mean, you can make an easy one night trip out of that for sure.
I mean, 3 hour-ish drive both ways is a bit long. I'd like to stay longer than a day if I go, but I don't know. Meanwhile, you were in Chicago
I was. I don't know why we did that, but that's what we did.
because when you're in Chicago, I can't be here because we are
We should
the
never be in this. We should never be. No,
same
no, God, not the same.
person.
No, we're not. And I don't want you to ever say that again. And
You're me with glasses
I
and
want
worse hair.
to try to never be in the same place as you. And yes, I was in Chicago, and I was actually in Chicago for a board game weekend. So I will talk about that on maybe the next podcast because it's definitely something I want to talk about. Listener, I will just tell you, and if you're a lifetime fan of this show, you've heard me say this before, and you know me, in that I am on the record saying that in terms of games for me, board games are my favorite like game type activity. Like they trump video games every day of the week to me. The big problem with board games are that generally you have to have multiple people to play them. In fact, I would say 90 to 95% of the time, really, you have to have multiple people to play them. And so it's difficult, especially when when you're playing a lot of these like 4-player games. It's difficult to get 4 people together on like a regular basis. And the games that we play are 3 to 12 hours long, some of them.
Yeah.
Legitimately, that's not an exaggeration. And like getting that many people together and just being able to burn that much time, especially now that we're old. I mean, this podcast is called Game Life Balance. Like it has to be a pretty special occasion, and it's very infrequent that we're able to do it. So yeah, this was just like me visiting some friends in Chicago for the weekend, friends that are kind of like a different group of friends than all of my high school friends, visiting them for the whole weekend, and we played like 10 board games, and it was amazing.
You gotta just block off time for that kind of stuff.
I think you do. It actually makes it really nice to just, it had been a year and a half since I'd seen them, which was probably too long, and it was really nice just to go there and see them as well. I mean, to be perfectly honest, like I love all of my high school friends. Like I love hanging out with you guys. One of you, Logan, is the only one who is kind of in the same place in his life as me. So we can relate on that level, and the fact that we both have a kid, that we're both married, that kind of thing. Dave is in the same place in his life as me, if not a couple years further down the road. So, because he's got 2 kids and he's like, 35.
Right, but I host a video game podcast. No, I don't. I host a lifestyle podcast. But I host a lifestyle podcast, and you host a lifestyle podcast.
So you're saying it's like we're the same
person, but you wear glasses.
Right.
And you have worse hair.
Your hair looks really bad tonight.
My hair looks good. I'm getting a haircut tomorrow. I am actually getting a haircut tomorrow.
So anyway, see, like Dave and I can relate in a way that I just can't with some of you guys, and that's totally fine. That doesn't make me any less. It doesn't make me have any less desire to hang out with you guys. It's just like you guys don't want to hear me drone on and on about my kid, but like Dave wants to hear about my kid, and Dave's wife wants to hear about my kid because I want to hear about their kids. Because we have kids.
I ask you about kids sometimes.
I'm not saying that you don't, and I'm not saying that you don't occasionally want to hear, but you don't want to sit down and have a 45-minute conversation about Max, and I don't blame you. You shouldn't want that. But when I get together with Dave and Tracy, that's what we did the first night. We basically sat around for an hour and a half and talked about our kids.
But you do want to sit around and listen to me talk about a college party for 45 minutes in which I drank 2 Four Locos.
I'm vicariously living through you.
Are you?
No, God, no. I would hate that.
As would I.
Yeah.
So you had something of a Dave life balance?
So I will talk about that, and I'll talk about more specifics next week because there were some really good board games that I played, one of which was based on a video game. So I feel like it could really coincide with this show. It was
Which
the
one?
it was the XCOM board game.
Was it the
Fizz.
XCOM board game?
It was the XCOM board game. That's crazy. I don't know how you knew that.
It's because I'm you. Only
With
with better
glass
hair and no
hair.
glasses. Yeah. What?
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 So I did. Do you remember the very first episode of the show when I told you about this new plan that my wife and I have with New Year's resolutions? Where like I've been waking up at 5 and playing video games.
I don't remember you talking about that, but I remember Rob talking about that on Game Life Balance Australia. Did you steal his idea or his identity? Rob doesn't wear glasses.
I think Rob does wear glasses.
Does he?
I think he does. Anyway, so listener, I've been waking up at like 5 to play video games since the start of this year, and the reason is because my wife and I instated a bedtime where we go to bed at the same time, and it's really nice. So that really cut into my video game playing time because I was always the guy that stayed up. I mean, most people that play video games, I feel like, do that when they have real lives. It and when we did this bedtime thing, cut down all my video game time. So I was like, well, I still want to play video games. So I'm going to start waking up at 5 a.m. to play video games. I have found that I have more video game playing time doing it this way than I've had in a very long time. Because my wife is never going to get up at 5. My kid, Max, is never going to get up at 5. So it's like always uninterrupted time for me. It's really nice. So I have actually played like 2 games already since the last time I went full gamer on Sunless Sea.
Full gamer.
I've played 2 games since then that I'm also prepared to talk about. Like and so I'm going to talk about one today, and it's cool. It's cool to have this much time to play video games.
So what you're saying is now that we are doing a lifestyle podcast, you want to go back to doing a video game podcast?
We should
Is that
start
what
a
you're
video
saying?
game. We should start a video game podcast.
We what?
Start a video game podcast.
This is a lifestyle podcast.
Yeah, no, we should start a video game podcast though, because I've got all these video games to talk about.
Right. Wow. What an idea. I hate you.
So the game I want to talk about, and I hope you've heard of it, is called The Witness.
Well, I think everyone has because I think you've mentioned it before.
I did, but I want to make sure that you've heard of it.
Every listener has listened to every episode. It's in our.
So The Witness is the second game by a game developer named Jonathan Blow. Now, if you are into the video game scene, maybe you know video game directors by name. Generally, though, video game directors are not like movie directors. They don't get first billing like many movie directors do. Jonathan Blow is one of the exceptions because he came out of nowhere with this game called Braid in 2006. And it was this small little indie game before indie games blew up that Xbox published in the very first Summer of Arcade that they ever did. So Xbox was trying to push the indie scene. They had they had a huge amount of the market share when they were out with the 360, and so they were trying to kind of throw all their crap at the wall and just see what would stick. So they decided to try this Summer of Arcade thing where they pushed indie titles, and the games came out at like $15 to $20 somewhere in there. And I think it was the very first one was Braid, and it was by this guy nobody ever heard of him. His name was Jonathan Blow, and it was this 2D platformer a la Mario. But it was a puzzle platformer. So it wasn't like a tricky reflex-based, skill-based platformer. It was more like I'm going to show you a puzzle. You're gonna mess around with it a little bit as with like a Mario type interaction with the puzzles until you solve the puzzle. Or until you don't solve the puzzle. I don't know, maybe you quit on it. But that was the game. And it was amazing because it was broken into worlds, and each world basically had a different mechanic or theme that changed the rules of the game, changed the rules of the platforming and introduced a whole new set of puzzles that you had to solve. I really, really liked it. It had some. The story was a little heavy-handed, uh, and I think a little preachy, but overall, I feel like the puzzles in it were some of the best puzzles I've like ever seen
I thought
in a
the
video game.
storyline was an extremely subtle allegory that was brilliant. I thought it was very artistic through and through, from the puzzles to the art style to the music to,
I thought it was very heavy-handed.
well, you don't read.
I do read
What?
books, magazines,
What books?
short stories.
All the books? Sarah
I,
Palin? You read all the books? You read all the magazines? All of them. I read all of them.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
I read all of them, don't you know?
Wait, did somebody say that? Did Sarah Palin say that?
What? Yeah, and like one of her first interviews, Katie Couric, back in 2008 or 12 or whatever,
She
was
said,
like,
"I read all the books."
no, she said, what newspapers, what periodicals do you read to keep up? She goes, oh, all of them. And Katie Couric was like, yeah, can you name any specific ones? She's like, I people think Alaska is like another planet, but really we get all the newspapers, all the magazines. I read all of them. Everything I can get my hands on.
I read all of them.
Yeah, it was like a
Really?
whole thing. Yeah, just Google it.
Don't
It was
remember.
stupid.
I don't.
Yeah.
That's awesome though. Yeah, that's awesome. So anyway, back to Braid, and I know you loved that game, and maybe
It was great.
you agree on the story, but the puzzles, I know we agree that like the gameplay and the puzzles were incredible.
Yeah, and when you
So-
finished a puzzle, when you solved a puzzle, most importantly, you felt awesome about it.
Yeah, and it felt like I remember playing that game and feeling when I completed some of the puzzles, like I was the only person ever that could have figured that out because of
Yeah.
how complicated it was. Like once you finally got there, and that was such a cool feeling. And it was true. I'm the only one that ever beat that game.
I heard that.
It was me. I know. So The Witness is his second game. Took him 10 years. 10 years between his first game and his second game. From what I understand, he put every bit of money basically that he earned from Braid over the course of the however many years before he started The Witness. He put all of that money back into The Witness. And he I think he made a team of like 6 people or something like that. I can't remember the exact number, but it's still very small. I mean, Braid was like him and an art guy that he hired. He like subcontracted that, I think, along with the music, but they weren't like a team. It was mostly just him. This is like an actual team of people. So The Witness is a similar concept in that it is a puzzle-based game that is multiple variations on a theme. So the game starts off and you just like, there is no introduction, there is no splash screen of any kind. It is literally just you press the start game button and you're just in this world at first person view, and you like walk forward and you're in like a hallway and you walk forward, you walk out into this world. And the very first thing you see is a panel, like just a square panel on a door. You don't know anything about where you are. Eventually you find out that you're on an island. Very quickly you find out you're on this island. You know nothing about it. But you just like wake up, you're on this island, and you have 2 forms of interaction. You can walk, and you can bring up a cursor that allows you to interact with these panels that you find throughout the world. So you walk forward and you can look around. So you walk forward and you come to this panel and you open up your interaction tool. And there's a start spot on this panel. It's a big circle. And when you click on the big circle, a spot near like the end, it could be, I think, it's like on the top of the panel, a spot that's very clearly an exit is there. And the panel is divided into squares, like small squares that make up just like a grid, right? And you have to trace a line on the path of squares. So like around the edges of the squares, like a piece of graph paper, you have to trace a line from the start to the end. And you do that, and the door opens. So you move on, and the very next thing is a more complicated version of that. And the very next thing is a more complicated version of that. And then the very next thing is a slightly more complicated version of that, that when you solve it, the door doesn't open and you look at it and you're like, oh, this has three cables and one cable lit up when I solve this puzzle. I need to go find these two other puzzles to light up these cables, and then that'll open up the door. And that's like the very first area. It's very, very basic. And it's just like, here's the way the puzzles are going to look. They're going to look like a circle, draw it to the end where this line is at. And then you get out of this area. And the very first thing you do is come up to a set of panels. And you look at them and it's just like a grid of two squares, one on top of the other. You start in the lower left-hand corner of this, and in the upper right-hand corner is an exit. And in the top square, there's a white dot, and the bottom square, there's a black dot. And so there's only like three possibilities of figuring out that puzzle. And you find out that, oh, I'm supposed to separate the white and black squares. And then you move on to the next puzzle that's right next to it, and it's a more complicated version of that with white and black squares in a larger panel. And you move on, and you move on, and you move on. And you start finding these puzzles that have all of these multiple pieces to them that are super difficult. Like they are, it's honestly a hard game to talk about because I don't.
Are they all square based?
Yeah, kind of, but it's hard because it's hard. I don't want to give away any of like the puzzle mechanics, right? So
right,
the theme is you need to draw a line. You need to draw a line from the start to the end. The variation are all of these different symbols, colors, etc., that pop up throughout the game that you have to work around. They are the language of the game. They are the language of the puzzles that you have to figure out when you look at them. And then mechanics get blended together. So you'll have this one mechanic that is taught to you in this one area, and you do like 20 puzzles just using this one mechanic. And then later on, you find a puzzle that very obviously has that mechanic, but has another mechanic from a different area that you have to incorporate.
Sure, and, like Braid.
Yeah, somewhat. Braid kept fairly to the mechanic that you were taught in that area, generally. This definitely builds on it. The super interesting thing is that nothing is told to you at all in this game. Nothing. Like zero about the mechanics of the puzzles. It all has to be figured out by the player. So, and not only that, so that may sound intimidating. It should, because things are not in sequence. You're not given this one type of puzzle. It slowly builds on that, and then you like finish that puzzle, and then it introduces another puzzle with that mechanic from the old puzzle. Like there's a lot of exploration of this world because you have to. There's tutorials for every single one of the mechanics of the puzzles. You just don't know where they are at all. You have to explore to find them. And you won't understand them at all unless you find these tutorials that are set up.
So it's an amazing puzzle game that's non-linear almost completely and has no guide, like Myst, right?
Very much so. Yeah, and I never played Myst, but your description, if that is what Myst was, your description is exactly correct. Like
Myst is you start on an island, although you don't immediately know it's an island. You're in first person. You click to move around the island, and there are a zillion puzzles, none of which are explained in any way or context. And
are the puzzles all like very different though?
They're extremely different. They're ridiculously different.
And so I think that may be like the biggest difference then between this and Myst is that all of the puzzles, every single one of like the 650 puzzles that are in this game, every single one of them is you start at a circle and you draw a line to the end. And
does that get repetitive and redundant?
No, it is, and you would think so, but it is one of the most incredible games that I can remember playing as a solo experience. Like it makes you feel brilliant in some of the areas when you solve the puzzles. Like most puzzle games, where there's like a generally there's a single solution to the puzzles. Like most puzzle games, there are some puzzles that I think you'll solve them and it'll feel kind of cheap. It'll feel like, oh, you just needed me to like figure out the exact perspective I needed on this puzzle. Or you needed me to figure out this like one gimmick.
Mm.
But that is very infrequent when it happens. Um, and just like the language of the game, the teaching of the mechanics is just, it is so well done. I like can't recommend this game enough, uh, for anybody that likes puzzle games, really, of any kind, because it will stretch your brain, and make you like. There were puzzles that I would sit. There were puzzles, I would wake up at 5. I'd be playing, I'd solve like 2 or 3 puzzles, and then I'd hit this puzzle that was maybe at the end of the area. And just like most video games, the end of the areas generally have more difficult puzzles than the start of them. I would hit a puzzle near the end of the area and I would sit there and I would just look at this puzzle for like 45 minutes. And I would try different solutions. I would not be able to solve it. I would leave, I would come back the next day, literally solve it on like the second try. I mean, it was one of those types. It's one of those types of games as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to take a step away or go explore a different area of the island. Um, and it is just wonderful. It is an amazing game, and it's a game that could easily be played with another person, because it is such it's there's like there's no sense of like urgency ever, because it's just like you look at these panels and you have however much time you want to solve them. So if you want to like tag team this with somebody else to solve the puzzles, you totally can.
I can't stand doing that.
That's fine. Then play it by yourself. Or you mean sitting there and looking at a puzzle?
No. I would love to play it. I just can't stand sitting there and trying something and then having somebody next to me say, "Oh, why don't you try this?"
Okay,
I've done that with puzzle games and it drives me crazy.
Then you shouldn't do that with this game, because that would be what you would do.
And you didn't do that because you were originally going to do that with your wife, right?
Yeah, and she ended up not being that into the game, which was fine. But I did have like a friend over one evening, and I was just showing it to him, and we sat there and played it for like 2 hours. Because
nice. Does a storyline emerge at some point?
No, the only type of exposition at all are these little tape recorders that you find that you can activate, and they are pieces of philosophy from various philosophers that may tie into the island, may not. So I completed this game, and it still is a very heady, kind of nebulous story. It's you on an island to solve puzzles. I mean, like that's generally what I got out of the story, is like that's all that there is.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you asked me if I'd completed all of the puzzles, and you asked me that before we started the podcast, I think.
No. I asked you during. I asked you,
and yeah. I said no, and I probably won't. And I'll explain the reason why. And I don't. It's a slight spoiler, so if you want to go into this game completely blind, and it's just a slight spoiler, I promise. It's not.
All right, I'm going to take out my earbuds, and then you wave your arms like a crazy man when you're done.
It doesn't tell you anything about the mechanics of the story of any of the puzzles. But I literally just got done telling you that there's no sense of urgency, so you can just kind of take puzzles at your leisure. After you complete the game, there's an area that opens up, and it is referred to as the challenge. That's like what Jonathan Blow has termed it as. Nothing has a name in the game. Like there's nothing anywhere in the game, but it has been come to be known as the challenge. And it is a series of randomly generated puzzles based on the algorithms of the game, using the puzzle mechanics that are in the game, that have a time limit involved with them. And it feels a little like a bait and switch when the entire the entire learning of the game up to this point has been without this. And suddenly, like, the very last thing in the game is this time-based, randomly generated puzzle. And I don't even like, I'm not even saying that like I need to look up the solution. The randomly generated thing is actually kind of awesome. I think that's a phenomenal way to handle the idea of trying to keep it a challenge for everybody,
Mhm.
because you can't make a guide for it, right? You can't make a puzzle solution because it's going to be different for everybody. But it's that time limit piece that I feel like it's a bummer. It was a bummer for me when that came up as like the final thing.
Why? Just because it's optional, right? You beat the game.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not saying that it's a bummer because I loved this game so much. I wanted to do everything.
Oh, I
And
gotcha.
I'm not
Did
saying
you
that I couldn't.
try this optional thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Was it too hard?
It's very difficult. I think if I sat there and did it enough, I could do it. But like every other puzzle in the game, you have the ability to walk away from it, write it down. Like I've got sheets of paper with line graphs all over them, all over my house. I look like a crazy person. They're everywhere because you have to write. You have to write a lot.
Please text me a picture of that so I can use it for our podcast image, please.
Okay, you have to write stuff down. At least I did. Maybe you're some sort of savant that wouldn't need to like write stuff down. But I've got all sorts of pictures in my phone of puzzle solutions so that I could reference them later. I mean, I feel like a crazy person, but it was the only way to play this game. But it made the game awesome. Um, but then you hit this and you can't walk away from it because when you come back, it's going to be different. Which again, I feel like is relatively fair to try to make a difficult puzzle at the end of the game that everybody will find challenging. But the time limit thing is what feels like a bummer, what feels like dishonest, because nothing else in the game was ever set up that way.
Why don't you just download a mod on the Steam Workshop and cheat?
Because I don't want to. I wouldn't do that. This game is one of the best single player games I've ever played.
Okay, so I will be buying The Witness when it goes on sale because I'm cheap.
It is one of the best single player games I've ever played. And there was one puzzle, a single puzzle that I had to look up a hint for. And otherwise it took me about 25 hours to play through the game. But there was a single puzzle that I had to look up a solution for, and it was because it was a perspective-based puzzle, and I had the correct solution. I just didn't like have it or kind of oriented correctly. I'll just leave it at that. But there are so many puzzles in this game that you get done solving them, and you're like, my God, like that was amazing. I don't know how anyone could like think of this as like a thing. It's an amazing game. It is an amazing game.
Awesome. So it'll probably make your game of the year list for 2016.
Almost without a doubt. This would have to be one of the best years in video games ever, and I'd have to have a lot of time to play them for this not to make my top 3. It was incredible.
Do you feel like you're taking crazy pills?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
Wow.
Yeah. So I can't recommend it enough. Like, if you like puzzles at all, and if you have a modicum of patience, modicum of patience, yeah, of patience, like, you should check this out. It's really good.
All right, dude, I will check out The Witness.
And I think that's kind of all the time we've got.
Yeah, man, it definitely is. That was cool, man. Did a little life stuff, went full gamer. I'm feeling pretty sexy. I don't know about you.
You got like a meeting to get to, like work?
No, for C2E2. So the Gonna Geek, the Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo is this weekend in Chicago, the weekend of March 18th to 20th. And Gonna Geek Network is going to present a panel, Everyday Podcasting for Your Everyday Life. And I'm actually going to be on that panel, and we're having a meeting to discuss it starting a few minutes ago that I will be joining. But if you are interested, on March 18th, on Friday, you should join the Gun and Geek Network at C2E2, the Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo. And on this special panel, members of the network from all across the country will share their secrets of podcasting, including all the challenges involved and how it affects their day-to-day lives. And if you're interested in podcasting, whether you are casual or professional, or you just want to see the Gun and Geek Network or meet me, God knows why, or anything like that, John will not be there, unfortunately. Then this is a panel you definitely want to catch. And that's Friday afternoon. We're in the C2E2 events listing.
What's the date? Friday, what date?
Friday, March 18th.
Okay.
Friday, March 18th. C2E2, Gun and Geek Network presents Everyday Podcasting for Everyday Life. So go check that out. And the Gun and Geek Network, which we've mentioned several times with no context, is a network that Game Life Balance US is a member of. And there are a number of podcasts and other geeky and nerdy articles and opinion pieces and lots of cool stuff at gunandgeeknetwork.com, or go to gunandgeek.com. If you go to gunandgeek.com, some other things that are going on in the network this week are Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is another podcast. And on episode 111, posted this week, the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents Haley, Lauren, and Stargate Pioneer discuss the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. mid-season 3 premiere episode, Bouncing Back. The trio also continue the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. giveaway of the Marvel Deadpool Collector Core crate. I want that. Talk about the upcoming Gun and Geek podcast host convention and the C2E2 panel, which we already talked about. Run down the weekly Marvel news, respond to listener feedback, and interact with live chat wing viewer chat comments. There's like super interactive. It's kind of awesome. It's really awesome. So that's Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then you heard us, and then there's lots of other podcasts that you can check out at gunandgeeknetwork.com. And also, Game Life Balance Australia, our sister show, launched a couple weeks ago, and it is hilarious. They're quite literally Australian versions of me and John, and they're awesome. So go to GameLifeBalanceAustralia.com. There's also links to them from our website, which John will talk to you about now-ish. Yeah, right before he shills shamelessly for iTunes reviews for 45 minutes.
I think now is probably a pretty good time. Thank you for listening to the Game Life Balance US podcast, the American edition of the Game Life Balance podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode, and leave us a review if you really want to make our day. You can find us on the Gun and Geek Network at gunandgeek.com, or on the official podcast network of Chicago's WGN Radio at WGNplus.com. Learn more about Game Life Balance, including contact information and links to our sister show in Australia, at gamelifebalance.us. I don't have anything else to say.
Look at you. Look at you. You didn't ask for iTunes reviews. It's so contagious that at the end of the first episode of Game Life Balance Australia, they even mentioned iTunes reviews.
Yeah, it didn't help. We literally never got a single iTunes review. So I gave up that goat.
Why use iTunes, listener?
I gave up. Listen, I know why you don't use iTunes. It sucks. But
Does it?
Yeah, but it was more like if you did use iTunes, you should leave us a review. But yeah, we never got a review. So
well, we're gonna go live on the Google Play podcast thing when that goes live. We've been approved. Game Life Balance US will be available on the Google podcast platform, whatever, when it launches. But I don't know when no one knows when it's actually launching, unless it's already live and no one told me.
No.
But in our chat panel, Paul 2K12 said I was going to give an iTunes review, but he never asked. So there you go. Maybe we will get an iTunes review. You're the man, Paul 2K12. Wants to know if they talk with funny Aussie accents. Well, they do talk with Australian accents because they are all Australian. I'm not sure if they're funny. If you find Australian accents inherently funny, then mayhap you would find them funny. Sometimes I do an Australian accent, but it immediately degenerates into Cockney.
One of them tweeted at me, or they didn't even tweet at me. They just tweeted and they said a bunch of words that I don't think were words. But
did they?
Yeah, but they told me that they were actually Australian words.
Oh,
so
I don't know how that works. Well,
yeah. So
thank you for the flowers.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the flowers, listener.
Yeah,
that's a weird thing to say. How did you throw your voice like that, John?
What did he say?
It's weird.
when girlfriends attack
Right?
the significant others of game life balance, disrupting episodes.
Yeah, that's all
Paul 2K12 really active in the chat now. Wants to know if the Aussies have some kind of extra censorship on their games. I don't know about that.
That
You
would be
have,
a really good question to ask them.
I would ask them that. They're on Twitter at GLB Australia, I think is their handle. But just search Game Life Balance Australia. You'll find them on Twitter. They're hilarious on Twitter.
They're great.
I would follow Rob and AC and the official Game Life Balance Australia handle because all three of them are absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, they're great.
So follow them. Follow me at Producer Cody. Follow John at ePlayGame. And
check out our website, GameLifeBalance.us.
oh, also follow shoot, what's it called? Follow
Friday.
No, follow what is it? Follow me. Follow me down, down, down until you see all my dreams. Not everything in this magical world is quite what it seems.
Are you sure it's not follow me and everything is all right? I'll be the one to tuck you in at night. And if you come with me, I can guarantee you won't find nobody else like me.